Dino Crisis, one of the most popular survival horror games ever, celebrates its 25th anniversary this year, with many players looking to take a nostalgic trip back to 1999, which would be a pivotal year for horror games, especially on the Sony PlayStation, as we also got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and quite possibly one of the scariest games ever made in Silent Hill. Dino Crisis would be among the many titles developed by Capcom, utilising similar elements with fixed camera perspectives seen in early Resident Evil titles, but it would also be one of the first games of its type from Capcom to make use of full 3D graphics and visuals for all the game's environments, assets and resources. However, it wouldn't be the first game of this type to fully implement all of these features, as River Hillsoft's Overblood would predate Dino Crisis by a few years on the PlayStation. Dino Crisis did perfect the formula seen in Resident Evil, while also adding even more intense situations and scenarios to heighten the player's anticipation, creating even more tension and atmosphere like never before. In Resident Evil, while it was scary, you were mainly dealing with mindless droning zombies, but in Dino Crisis, you find yourself dealing with formidable foes, with enemies and creatures from another time period, with dinosaurs themselves, and not just any type of dinosaurs, but the most ferocious and vicious creatures that will come in many forms, mainly with raptors and the almighty T-Rex. The plot of the game in many cases bears similarities to the first Resident Evil game, with a team being sent to an undisclosed location to search for a professor who has been found to be conducting unofficial experiments that led to these prehistoric creatures to be brought into the modern world, which can have devastating consequences for the rest of the world if not taken care of, which leads the team on an adventure to find the professor, while also putting a stop to whatever caused the madness. From the get-go, the game is very intense in how it depicts its level of violence, and action-packed scenes that it throws you into the deep end, where it won't be long before you have your first encounter with these prehistoric monsters, as you witness the bodies of workers on the island that have been ripped to shreds by these animals, leaving you with no other choice either to fight or to run to survive. Unlike in your typical survival horror format, the game presents many twists and challenges and tough situations that bring you through many distinctive locations, requiring you to solve puzzles, unlock doors and find items of interest while dealing with the many encounters you will face along the way, all with the aims of survival. No sooner have you dealt with one encounter that you will be met with an even more terrifying presence, which will only ramp the fear factor to a whole new level. Every location presents a new challenge to overcome, and with the game adding multiple story arcs where you must make specific choices that will display different scenarios, leading to various possible endings and boss encounters, which will only add to the longevity and replay value of the experience. There really was nothing like Dino Crisis at its time of release back in 1999, which in many ways broke new grounds, while taking elements that were previously seen in other survival horror games, but added so much new context that it has left such a lasting impression that fans have been crying out for years to Capcom to revisit the franchise. While there was another excellent sequel with Dino Crisis 2 that was more action-packed and even action-focused, that moved away from the 3D visual style to offer up pre-rendered visuals that would have been seen in early games like Resident Evil, but still managed to keep the terrifying format that was ever so present in the original game. There would be a third entry in the series that would be released on the original Xbox that took the story in a completely different direction, being set thousands of years into the future, and in all honesty had no real relation or context to the story of the original games. If anything, it felt like a completely new and original experience, all on its own, but wasn't well received, and has since fallen by the wayside into an abyss of forgotten games that nobody ever talks about. A Light Gun spin-off would also see a release on the PlayStation 2, with Dino Stalker, along with a mobile game being released in the mid-2000s that would be seen as the last entries in the series. The original two games also saw a release on other consoles along with the PC during this time, proving that the series did have massive appeal, but fans have been crying out for years for some sort of revival, remaster, remake or re-release, just to give some context or clarity to show Capcom that we fans are still interested in the franchise, but little to no information has been made available as of yet. Over the last while, however, Capcom has begun asking fans and players the types of games or franchises they would like to see more of, and right away one of the most requested names that keeps popping up for them is to revisit the Dino Crisis series. It is difficult to say if anything will surface in the near future regarding any possible revival of the franchise, but the roars are too loud to ignore. The fact that the Dino Crisis series still holds strong along 25 years after the series' first release is a true testament to how good the original games are. With the massive success around the modern Resident Evil remakes, and even the re-release of the classic entries just recently on PC, keeping with the original features, making them compatible for players to access on modern systems, provides new ways to play, showcasing the want and need for these games in our lives. Even with other popular franchises with games like the classic Tomb Raider series that allow players to experience the games through the use of original and modern visuals, this again proves my point that players do want access to these older games, as we will still play them. Considering the hype of these classic titles seeing release on modern systems, I think it will only be a matter of time before we see a revival of the Dino Crisis series, as you can imagine the excitement around social media and the internet if this happens. It happened only recently with the PC versions of Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3 being added to GOG.com, and it would be even more so if Dino Crisis was added. As players, we can only dream, but hopefully we won't have to wait long for something to happen. But while we do wait, there are still many more terrifying games to explore from this era, which we will look at in this next video, that will dive into lots of scary alternatives that you might want to try.